You'll recall last night I spoke about the housing and rental crisis. You may remember the famous 1997 Australian film The Castle. It put a smile on the face of millions of Australians and was effectively a love letter to the Australian dream of home ownership. Very few Australian families looking to buy a home in this country at the moment are smiling. Looking back on the film, you can see how much this country has lost its way. Take the home of The Castle's protagonist, Daryl Kerrigan. Back in the late 1990s, Daryl's home, a humble 3-bedroom weatherboard home that sat right next to Melbourne Airport, came in at $70,000. In June last year, the exact same property is now estimated to be worth $1.24 million, an increase of 1,000% in real terms in 25 years. Young Australians have copped it. In the early 1980s, home ownership rates among 25 to 34-year-olds peaked at 61%. The most recent census data shows that the figure has dropped to below 45%. It's hardly surprising to see why. In 1975 Sydney, it took about 4 times the median household income to buy a home in Sydney. So if your family earned, say, $10,000 a year in 1975, you could buy a home for around $40,000, 4 times your income. Today, with a median house price of around $1 million, that figure is 12 times household income. And even then, you ask how many people are on $100,000 a year? If they're not, what can they buy? This is why young Australians are being forced to rent, and even then rent is too expensive for many. In the last year, rents in Australia have gone up by over 10%, a record increase. Wages have gone up by less than 3%. What is to blame for this mess? Well, one of the reasons is that Australia, I made some of the points last night about land costs, but Australia has added over 400,000 people to our population last year, most of whom flocked to our major cities as jobs continue to disappear in our regions and our rural infrastructure crumbles. And we can expect even more people to rock up as international students return to our universities and crowd out the market for school leavers and young workers. So you ask, is this fair? Who's looking after our own? For too long, our politicians have used immigration to artificially pump up our economic growth and property prices. And now the tide is turning. Interest rates are now on the rise. People have had enough. See, for too long we were told property prices would never come down. We were told by the Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe that he expected interest rates to stay at record lows until 2024. Well, now the cat is out of the bag. Mortgage holders are now paying 50% extra on their monthly repayments due to the latest rate hikes, and many will have to sell only to find the selling price of their home is less than the purchase price. And renters can't find a rental property in our major cities due to a record-breaking shortage of supply. Meanwhile, our politicians continue on, making empty promises and fatuous remarks, but offering nothing that remotely resembles a solution to this problem. The first solution is supply. If there were tens of thousands more homes on the market, the price would fall. If more people were able to afford a home, fewer would want to rent. Rental prices would fall. It appears no one in Canberra understands that simple truth.